Hey everyone, thank you so much for your love and support. Every like, comment, and subscription means the world to me. You all inspire me to keep creating these emotional, romantic stories that touch the heart. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, tap the like icon, and share this story with someone who still believes in love. Stay tuned. More heart-melting, suspenseful love stories are coming your way. The evening air along the boardwalk was thick with the smell of grilled squid and salt. Neon signs shimmered on the wet pavement, and laughter drifted from the arcades and cafes that lined the beach road. It should have been another normal night. Stella walked home with a paper bag of dumplings in one hand and her phone in the other, scrolling through pictures she'd taken earlier at work: sunlight, sea, smiles. Ordinary things. She liked that they still existed in her life. Then the text came. "Leave the marina now. Min Jae." Her steps faltered. The marina? She wasn't there. Hadn't been since the day with Jae Hyun, but her stomach nodded anyway. Something was wrong. Another message followed. "Don't call Jae Hyun. He's in the middle of it." At the same time, across town, the marina was a place of smoke and shouting. Jae-hyun's men had gathered for what was supposed to be a quiet handoff, but nothing about it was quiet now. A rival crew had appeared from the dockside shadows, guns, steel, the metallic scent of blood already in the air. Jae-hyun's coat flared as he moved, calm even amid chaos. He hated violence, but he was a man who understood necessity. "Get the shipment secured," he ordered, voice steady. "No witnesses." Min Jae pressed a finger to his earpiece. "Boss, she might come here." Jae Hyun froze for half a heartbeat. "She what?" "I warned her off, but she's stubborn." A muscle tightened along Jae Hyun's jaw. "Find her before they do." Stella had started running. The streets that led to the marina twisted between warehouses and seafood stalls. She didn't know why she was going toward danger instead of away from it, only that she needed to see him. To know he was alive. By the time she reached the pier, the air smelled of gasoline and gunpowder. The water was black, rippling under harsh floodlights. Shouts echoed from the end of the dock. Then a man stepped into view, one of Jae Hyun's rivals, knife in hand, grin feral under the sodium glow. "Pretty girl," he said in rough Korean. "You shouldn't be here." She backed away, heart hammering. The man lunged, and another figure moved out of the darkness, catching the attacker's wrist mid-strike. Jae Hyun twisted the blade from his hand and sent it clattering across the planks. "You don't touch her," he said, voice low and lethal. The man stumbled back, clutching his wrist. Two of Jae Hyun's guards pulled him away into the night. For a moment, all Stella could do was stare at Jae Hyun. His shirt was torn, blood streaked his sleeve, but his eyes were clear, alive. "You shouldn't be here," he said, breath rough. "I got a message," she whispered. "I thought you were. I told you to stay safe. Then stop giving me reasons to worry." Their argument hung in the air, sharp and trembling. He took a step closer, and she saw the exhaustion beneath his anger. The man behind the legend. Without thinking, she reached up and brushed a cut near his jaw. "You're bleeding." He caught her wrist, not to stop her, but to steady himself. For a heartbeat, the noise around them faded. Waves against the dock, shouts somewhere distant, the hum of the city. Just the two of them in that fragile pocket of silence. "I keep trying to stay away," he murmured. "And then you show up. Maybe that's not something you can control." He let out a quiet laugh, half disbelief, half surrender. "You make everything harder, you know that? Maybe you need someone who does." The faintest smile curved his lips. He pulled her closer, not in possession but in relief, his forehead resting lightly against hers. She felt his breath, the warmth of him, the trembling that betrayed how close he'd come to losing control of everything. For one suspended moment, the world was only heartbeat and light. Min Jae appeared then, urgency in his eyes. "Boss, we have to move. Police are on the way." Jae Hyun nodded once. "Get the men clear." He turned back to Stella. "Come with me." "Where?" "Somewhere they can't reach you." "I'm not leaving," she said quietly. "Not until you tell me what's really happening." He hesitated, torn between instinct and trust. Then he took her hand. Then you'll hear it from me. But not here. They moved toward the end of the pier, his guards falling in behind them. Sirens wailed in the distance, blue lights flickering off the dark water. Half an hour later, they reached a secluded glass-walled safe house overlooking the sea. Inside, the lights were low, the room minimal, just couches, a table, a panoramic view of the waves. Stella wrapped her arms around herself. You live like this? Always waiting for something to break. He poured 2 glasses of water, handed her one. It's not living. It's surviving. She studied him. Then why keep doing it? Because if I stop, everyone I care about pays the price. Everyone, she asked softly. His gaze met hers. You included. The truth in his voice was heavier than any confession. She didn't know what to say, so she stepped closer instead, fingertips brushing his sleeve. He didn't move away. The tension that had been building for weeks found its center there, in silence, in the way their eyes met and stayed. He reached up, gently tucking a curl behind her ear. The smallest smile touched his mouth. You have no idea how much trouble you are, he said. She smiled back. Then we're even. They didn't kiss. Not yet. But something changed in that stillness. A promise, unspoken but undeniable. Outside, the waves struck the rocks with slow, rhythmic force. Inside, the man who ruled half the city finally allowed himself to breathe. The city never truly slept. Even past midnight, Seoul shimmered in motion. Headlights gliding through rain-washed streets, the hum of traffic echoing beneath overpasses, neon signs breathing color into the dark. From the glass-walled safe house above the marina, Stella watched it all in silence. Jae-hyun stood a few paces behind her, a phone pressed to his ear, voice low and controlled. No, move the shipment inland. The docks are compromised. Yes, burn everything that traces back to me. He ended the call and set the phone on the counter. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Stella said quietly, how many more people have to get hurt before it stops? Jae-hyun exhaled. Too many already. She turned to face him. Then why not walk away? Because walking away doesn't erase the debts. His tone was flat, but there was fatigue in the set of his shoulders. You think I never tried? Every time I pull back, someone else fills the gap. Someone worse. He sat down on the edge of the couch, elbows resting on his knees. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked his age, not a legend, not a ghost, just a man who'd carried too much. Stella crossed the room and sat opposite him. You could still leave. Start over somewhere else. Could you, he asked softly, if you saw the things I've done? The question hung heavy between them. She thought of the night at the pier, the blood, the gunfire. Yet when she looked at him now, she didn't see the monster people whispered about. She saw the man who had bled to protect her. I don't know, she said, but I'd want to try. A sharp knock at the door made them both freeze. Jae-hyun motioned for her to stay back. He drew a pistol from the side table, clean, silent, and moved to the entrance. Who is it? Min-jae, came the reply. He opened the door. Min-jae stepped in, face pale, sweat streaking his temples. They hit the Yongdo warehouse, he said. 3 dead. They were looking for you. Jae-hyun's jaw clenched. Who sent them? Park's crew. They've teamed up with the Russians. For the first time that night, something cracked behind Jae-hyun's calm. So it begins, he murmured. Min-jae glanced at Stella. She shouldn't be here, boss. I know. Jae-hyun's voice was low. But she's safer with me than anywhere else. They spent the next hour in near silence. Min-jae relayed reports. Jae-hyun gave short, precise orders. Stella listened, trying to piece together a world built on codes and fear. Every call ended with the same phrase. Understood. Until the sky breaks. When Min-jae finally left, Jae-hyun poured himself a drink he didn't touch. Until the sky breaks. What does that mean? She asked. He looked out the window. It means we fight until there's nothing left to lose. And you believe that? I used to. His eyes found hers again. Now I'm not sure. A sudden vibration rattled the table, Another phone lighting up. Jae-hyun frowned at the message. Found her picture online. They know her name. His expression turned to ice. They're coming for you. Before she could speak, he was already moving, grabbing a duffel from the closet, pulling out a change of clothes, a gun, and a small envelope of cash. Pack what you need. We leave in 10 minutes. Leave? Go where? Somewhere they can't find you. I'm not running away. Yes, you are, he snapped, then stopped, softening his tone. Stella, they don't play by rules. You saved me once. Let me return it. They left through the back stairwell, the city wind sharp against their faces. A black sedan waited by the curb. As they drove, the skyline stretched like a river of lights. Where will we go? She asked. The mountains. A house no one knows about. Just for a while. She leaned back, watching him in the glow of passing streetlights. There was something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Fear. Not for himself, but for her. Why me, Jae-hyun? She asked quietly. You could send anyone away. Hide anyone. He gripped the wheel tighter. Because losing you would make everything else meaningless. The words struck deeper than she expected. She looked away, heart pounding, not trusting herself to answer. Hours later they reached a remote villa perched above a river valley. The air was cold and clean, the night sky alive with stars. Inside, the house was simple, stone fireplace, wooden floors, silence thick enough to hear their breathing. Jae-hyun checked the windows, then finally sat down. We'll stay until it's safe. 2 days, maybe 3. Stella nodded, sinking onto the couch opposite him. And then I end this. He stared into the darkness beyond the glass. No more running. She watched him, the firelight flickering across his face, the same face she had once seen lifeless underwater, now shadowed by everything he carried. Do you ever wonder, she asked softly, what your life could have been if none of this happened? He smiled without humor. Every day. Then promise me something. He looked up. When it's over, she said, don't die trying to fix the past. Live long enough to start again. Something in his expression shifted, an almost imperceptible crack in the armor. He reached out, resting his hand lightly over hers. I'll try, he said. If you're there when it happens. She nodded. Under the same sky. Outside, the wind swept through the pines. Inside, the flames burned low, throwing gold across the walls. And for the first time in years, Jae-hyun closed his eyes, not as a man waiting for war, but as someone who'd finally found a reason to survive it. The sky over Busan carried the faint orange haze of dusk, soft but uneasy, the kind of twilight that made the sea look endless and the air too still to trust. From the window of the safe house, Stella could see the harbor, cranes, ships, gulls circling over the docks. To anyone else, it was just another quiet evening. But for Jae-hyun, silence was never safety. It was warning. He stood near the window, a pistol resting on the table beside him, half disassembled. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, veins visible under the skin. He'd been like this for hours, listening, thinking, barely breathing. Stella sat at the edge of the couch, knees drawn up, watching him. Every sound outside made her heart jump. A passing truck, a boat horn, a dog barking somewhere in the distance. You haven't said a word in 2 hours, she said finally. Jae-hyun didn't look at her. Words are dangerous. She frowned. You mean silence keeps you safe? He turned then, his gaze dark but steady. No. Silence keeps others alive. For a moment neither spoke. The room felt smaller, the air thick with things unsaid. The way she looked at him, the way he tried not to look back. She wanted to believe he could be free, that the man she'd saved from the waves was more than the shadow he'd become. But every time he spoke, she was reminded that his world was built on secrets, not promises. He picked up the gun again, reassembling it with slow precision. You should leave tonight, he said quietly. There's a ferry to Jeju before midnight. Once you're on it, you disappear. Stella rose. And you? I stay. You'll die if you do. His lips curved, barely a smile. I already did. The day I became who I am. Something cracked inside her chest, a soundless ache. She crossed the room and grabbed his wrist, forcing him to look at her.
Don't talk like that.
He didn't pull away.
His voice was softer now.
You don't understand, Stella. There are people who think I betrayed them. They're coming. You can't be here when they do. I'm not leaving you. The firmness in her tone surprised even her. For weeks, she tried to convince herself she was only helping him heal, that what she felt was gratitude or curiosity. But it wasn't. It was deeper. It was the kind of attachment that defied reason, the kind that made you stay when every instinct told you to run. Before either could say another word, the lights flickered. Jae-hyun's head snapped toward the window. They've cut the power. The street below went black. Then, the distant hum of engines. 3 black vans turned the corner, moving slow and deliberate. He moved fast, pulling her down, pushing her behind the sofa, loading the pistol with practiced ease. Stay down, he whispered. What's happening? She breathed. They found me. The first shot shattered the window. Glass rained across the floor, glittering in the fading light. Jae-hyun returned fire. 2 clean shots, one low, one high. Then silence again. Stella covered her ears, shaking. Her heartbeat was so loud it drowned everything else. She saw the sharp concentration in his eyes. Not fear, but something colder. Controlled.
Trained.
He grabbed her hand. Back door.
Now.
They moved through the narrow hallway, the air smelling of gunpowder and dust. Outside, the alley stretched into shadow. Narrow walls, flickering street lamps, footsteps echoing somewhere close. Who are they? She whispered. My past, he said simply. A figure appeared at the end of the alley. Jae-hyun fired once. The man fell, and they kept running. They reached the docks, the smell of salt and fuel filling the air. The sea was dark and restless, waves slapping against metal hulls, ropes creaking. A single boat was tied near the edge, small but fast. He pushed her toward it. Go. She shook her head. Not without you. He hesitated, and that second cost them. A shot rang out, grazing his shoulder. He staggered but didn't fall. Jae-hyun, she screamed, catching his arm. He winced but managed a grim smile. Guess I still owe you one. Together, they stumbled onto the boat. Stella started the engine, her hands shaking but sure. As they pulled away from the dock, gunfire echoed behind them, bullets splintering the wood around their feet. She ducked instinctively, but Jae-hyun didn't flinch. His eyes stayed on the men on shore, narrowing like he was memorizing their faces. When they were far enough out, the noise faded. Only the hum of the motor and the crash of waves remained. He sat down, blood soaking through his shirt. She tore a strip of cloth from her jacket and pressed it to his wound.
Hold still, she said.
He watched her, the worry in her face, the way her hands trembled but didn't stop working. You should have left, he murmured. And you should have lived differently, she shot back. But here we are. For the first time, he laughed low, pained, but real. Here we are. The boat rocked gently, the moon glinting off the water. She met his gaze, and for a moment, the world was silent again. Not the dangerous kind of silence, but the kind that held everything they hadn't said. Fear, hope, guilt, longing. You saved me twice now, he said quietly.
Why?
She looked at him, her voice barely above a whisper. Because no one else ever did for me. His breath caught. He reached out, brushing his fingers against hers. Then maybe we both needed saving. She looked away, blinking hard. The city lights shimmered on the horizon, distant, unreachable. Behind them, the past burned. Ahead, only uncertainty waited. And in that fragile, stolen moment on the dark sea, Stella realized that silence didn't always mean danger. Sometimes it meant beginning again. The ferry rocked gently as it neared Jeju. Morning mist clung to the surface of the sea, blurring the horizon into soft shades of silver and blue. For the first time in weeks, the air smelled clean, salt, wind, and something almost peaceful. Stella stood near the railing, her hair whipped by the breeze. Behind her, Jae-hyun sat with his injured shoulder bound in white gauze. He looked tired, but his eyes were alert. Always alert. "Does it ever stop?" she asked without turning.
What?
"The way you listen. Like you expect the world to attack you at any second." He smiled faintly. "When you've lived long enough with enemies, silence becomes noise." She exhaled, gripping the rail tighter. "Then maybe Jeju will sound different." He glanced toward the island ahead, green and quiet. Maybe. 2 days later, they found a small house on the edge of Siabupo, one of those places where cliffs met the sea and fishermen left their nets to dry on the rocks. It wasn't much, but it had walls and a roof, and for Jae-hyun, that was luxury. Days passed in stillness. He cooked simple meals, rice, broth, kimchi. She cleaned his wound, replaced the bandage. They said little, but the quiet between them began to change. It no longer felt like danger waiting to return, but something heavier, the weight of things unsaid. One afternoon, as gulls cried overhead, she found him sitting on the veranda, staring at the water. His shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, the wind catching his hair. "You used to live near the sea, didn't you?" she asked. He nodded. "Busan. Before everything went wrong." She sat beside him. "You never talk about it. There's nothing to tell that you'd want to hear. Try me." He hesitated, then said quietly, "My family was poor. My father worked the docks. One night, he didn't come home. I found out later the men he worked for weren't fishermen. They were smugglers. When he tried to walk away, they made sure no one else in my family ever could." Stella's breath caught. "And you joined them?" "I wanted revenge," he said. "But revenge doesn't end things. It only builds a bigger cage." She looked at him, really looked, and for the first time saw not the coldness that frightened everyone else, but a boy who had been forced to grow up in the dark. "I think you still have a chance," she said softly. He turned his head. "At what?" "At peace." Something in his gaze shifted, like the sea before a storm, still but full of depth. "Peace isn't for men like me." "Then I'll fight for it," she said simply. For a moment, neither of them moved. Only the sound of waves filled the air. That evening, a knock came at the door. Stella froze. Jae-hyun's hand went instantly to the pistol he kept hidden under the table. He opened the door cautiously, and his expression changed from suspicion to shock. A man stood there in a gray coat, smiling easily. "Long time, Hyung." Jae-hyun's voice was tight. "Min-seo?" "Who else?" The newcomer stepped inside before being invited. His face was familiar, sharp jawline, easy confidence, but his eyes were the kind that never told the truth. "I heard what happened in Busan," Min-seo said, looking around. "You vanished. Everyone thought you were dead. Maybe I should have stayed that way." Min-seo laughed lightly. "You always had a flair for drama." His gaze landed on Stella. "And who's this?" "Someone who saved my life," Jae-hyun said flatly. Min-seo's smile deepened. "Then I owe her, too." Something about his tone made Stella uneasy. It was too smooth, too rehearsed. They sat around the small table. Min-seo told stories of the past, deals gone wrong, rivals eliminated, money changing hands. Jae-hyun listened, but said little. Stella watched both men, sensing an invisible wall between them. When Min-seo finally stood to leave, he clasped Jae-hyun's shoulder. "You can't hide forever, Hyung. They're cleaning up loose ends. Come back before they decide you're one of them." Jae-hyun's eyes darkened. "I'm done with that world. Maybe it's not done with you." Min-seo's smile faded. "You know how this ends." Then he was gone. That night, Stella couldn't sleep. She found Jae-hyun outside again, staring at the horizon. "He's not a friend, is he?" she asked quietly. "He used to be," he said. "Now he's a messenger." "For who?" "For the man I once worked for." "Will he tell them where we are?" Jae-hyun didn't answer. His silence was enough. She moved closer, her voice trembling. "Then we should leave." He looked at her, the faintest smile on his lips. "And go where?" "There's nowhere the sea doesn't reach." Lightning flickered somewhere far away, not storm lightning, but the faint pulse of city lights reflected on the clouds. Then what do?
We wait, he said.
The next morning, the house smelled of coffee and salt. Stella was washing dishes when she heard a faint click near the door, a sound too deliberate to be wind. She froze, then turned slowly. A small red light blinked beneath the windowsill. A tracker. Her pulse quickened. Jae-hyun. He came instantly, saw it, and his face hardened. He planted it when he came in. Min-seo. The calm they'd built shattered in an instant. Jae-hyun grabbed a duffel bag, tossed in the essentials, and loaded his gun. Get your shoes, he said sharply. Where are we going? Anywhere. He didn't tell them to look. As they stepped outside, the morning sun broke over the cliffs, gold and blinding. For a brief, beautiful moment, the island looked untouched, peaceful, alive. And then the sound came. Engines. More than one. Jae-hyun swore under his breath. They're here. From the road above, black SUVs appeared, tires grinding against gravel. Men in dark suits spilled out, moving fast, weapons drawn. Stella's heartbeat thundered. What do? Jae-hyun's jaw clenched. We run. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the narrow path leading down the cliffs. The wind whipped around them, waves crashing below. Gunfire cracked behind them, echoing across the rocks. They reached the bottom just as a bullet tore through the air, striking the cliff beside her. She stumbled, and he caught her, pulling her against the stone wall. Don't look back, he said. Just keep moving. She nodded, breathless. They ran until the path opened into a hidden cove, half-shadowed by volcanic rock. A small boat rocked gently in the tide. Old, but usable. He turned to her, eyes fierce. Get in. What about you? I'll cover you. No. Stella. His voice was low, final. You saved me once. Don't waste it. She hesitated, tears stinging her eyes. I'm not leaving you again. A shot rang out from above. He pushed her into the boat, the impact throwing them both off balance. The last thing she saw before the boat drifted out was Jae-hyun turning back toward the cliffs, gun raised, silhouette framed against the rising sun. Then smoke.
Shouts.
Silence. The waves carried her farther from shore, the island shrinking behind her. Jae-hyun, she whispered, the wind tearing her voice away. And somewhere far behind, beneath the roar of the sea, came one final sound, the sharp, distant echo of a single gunshot. Morning sunlight filtered through pale clouds, soft as silk across the shoreline. When Stella woke, the sound of the sea was the first thing she heard, calm, endless, familiar. She lay there for a while, her body sore, her clothes damp with salt water, her thoughts blurred by fragments of memory. Gunfire, Jae-hyun's voice, the cliff, the boat. And then silence. When she opened her eyes fully, she was no longer in Jeju's cove, but on a different stretch of coast, a quiet fishing village where the tide rolled in gentle waves. A local woman had found her unconscious near the rocks and carried her here. For 2 days, Stella rested in a small guest house by the sea. The villagers said no one else had washed ashore. They had seen no man, no wreck, nothing but an empty horizon. Each night she walked along the beach, looking out into the vastness of the water, waiting for something, a voice, a shadow, a sign. But the sea kept its secrets. A month later, life on Jeju moved slowly. Stella took a job helping at a dive shop, teaching tourists how to swim in the shallow coves. Some days, she could almost pretend the past few weeks had been a fever dream. The rescue, the danger, the man with the quiet voice and eyes that held entire storms. Almost. Every time she touched the water, she thought of him. Every time she saw the horizon, she remembered the way he had looked at her, not with fear, but with that quiet resignation that only people who had lost everything could wear. One evening, after closing the shop, she walked to the pier. The sea was calm, turning gold under the setting sun. A soft wind moved through her hair. On the railing lay a small envelope, held down by a seashell. Her breath caught. She looked around. The dock was empty. Only the sound of waves answered. With trembling hands, she opened the envelope. Inside was a folded piece of paper, damp at the edges, written in a hand she knew too well. You once told me the sea could keep a secret. Maybe it can keep us too. Don't wait by the shore forever.
Live.
And if you ever see a shadow beneath the waves, don't be afraid. Some ghosts learn how to breathe again. No signature. No name. But she didn't need one. Stella held the paper to her chest, her eyes stinging with tears she didn't try to hide. The sun dipped lower, casting long ribbons of light over the water. Somewhere beyond that horizon, she imagined him, walking on another pier, watching the same sky, both of them alive in their own quiet corners of the world. The sea stretched wide between them, but it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like distance, like waiting, like possibility. She smiled through the ache, whispering into the wind, "Goodbye, Jae-hyun, until the sea decides otherwise." The tide rolled in and out, erasing her footprints, carrying the past away with the foam. And for the first time in a long time, Stella didn't feel afraid of tomorrow.
Epilogue.
A year later, on a misty morning at the same beach, a local fisherman found something caught in his net, a small silver pendant shaped like a wave. He sold it to a tourist without a thought. That evening, the woman who bought it walked past Stella's dive shop, the pendant glinting in the sun. And for a heartbeat, Stella looked up, her breath catching, as if she'd felt a presence move through the air, familiar as the sea itself. She smiled again, quietly, knowingly, and kept walking toward the light.